Xavier? Xavier! Wake up! Wake up, please wake up! I was shaking the old sorcerer by his shoulders and trying not to get stabbed by any of the sharp rose stones which had poisoned him. They were still sticking into his skin and covered his robes with barbs. The two of us had gone through a portal to fight Sam, his former apprentice and master of emotional magic, whatever the hell that is. But as soon as Xavier fell through the portal, he had been impaled by rose thorns. Those thorns had incapacitated him with a lethal toxin, and had now caused him to completely cease breathing. I felt for a heartbeat. There was nothing. His lips began to turn blue as he remained motionless, sprawled out in the field of roses. I realized he could actually die. He wasn't invincible after all. Once upon a time, he had been a boy just like me. You can't die, okay? You can't die like this. I was just beginning to learn something from you. You can't leave me yet. I'm not ready. I realized I was crying as my tears pattered softly to the soil beneath my feet. For a while, I just stood there, staring at his body. It didn't seem possible that it could be true. It made me want to go home, to give up hope. Give up on this entire ridiculous goal of becoming the next guardian. I almost did retreat. I was very close to doing so, but then I heard a whisper in my mind's ear, telling me not to quit. It was so quiet. It was barely understandable. But it was there. A familiar voice like Xavier's, telling me to keep pressing forward. This was important. As important a quest as ever there was. To save the multiverse. And I was the only one who could. I remembered the Abyss dimension, the floating cats with no kibble, and the dark wizard who wanted to unmake the multiverse so that he could remake it to suit his needs and benefit him. There was only one person standing in the way of all of that now. Me. I looked around the field of roses and tried to figure out how to get to Sam's sprawling palace in the distance. If not for Sam, Xavier would be alive. Sam had planted the roses which had poisoned him, and I'd get my revenge. So, you're really gonna try to fight me, huh, loser? I spun around to see a girl about my age dressed in dark clothing. She had long black hair with pink highlights and facial piercings, making her look like one of the goth kids from the old high school. In her hand, she held a long, slender magic wand with a black rose curled around its shaft. You killed him! I shouted. He was just trying to help people, and you killed him! The girl smirked at me, laughing. He deserved to die for coming here, same as you. Any last words? I couldn't think of anything clever, so I shot a lightning bolt at her. She dove out of the way, concealing herself amongst the roses. Their thorns didn't affect her as she used the flowers for cover and began racing in my direction. The leaves rustled with her movements. A moment later, her voice was behind me. This totally threw me off since I thought she was in front of me. Turning, I took my attention off the body of my dead master. Poor Xavier, she said in a mocking tone. He trusted you, and what did that get him? A failed apprentice, a dead sorcerer, and a forgotten key. I turned around to see she had thrown her voice like a ventriloquist and was in front of me the whole time. And she was grabbing something from Xavier's dead body. The key! I shouted, realizing too late that I had forgotten the most crucial thing and had left it exposed. Above all else, I was to protect that key with my life if Xavier passed away. He had told me on multiple occasions. The key was the symbol of the all-world tree, a talisman of its unlimited power. I still didn't know exactly what it did, but I figured that it was really important for some reason or another, and I had just forgotten about it at the worst possible moment. Oh, Peruka's gonna be very happy with me, she said, smiling. Maybe she'll even want to get back together again. What? You dated her too? Did everyone in the frickin' multiverse go out with my ex? She disappeared back into the roses again and laughed teasingly. Oh, you poor, poor, simple-minded boy. I can see why she's been going easy on you, but don't expect the same treatment from me. She sent a flurry of roses my way from where she stood. They shot out from the ground like rockets and came careening towards me as I dove out of the way, barely avoiding their deadly poison. You stand no chance, Sam called to me from everywhere, her voice echoing in the air around me. This is my domain. You've lost your mentor and his most prized possession. Xavier must be embarrassed that he ever met you. That last sentence made me pause. Sam was a master of emotional magic. She could manipulate people into making bad decisions by exploiting their fears and their sadness, their love and their rage. She had made one mistake. She had referred to Xavier in the present tense just now. Xavier must be embarrassed that he ever met you. Not Xavier would have been embarrassed, or Xavier was embarrassed. Instead, she had referred to the old sorcerer as if he was still alive. Was it possible this whole thing had been an illusion contrived to make me fail my quest? What if Xavier was standing right beside me, invisible like he had been while we fought Derek? Xavier, if you're still alive and you didn't say anything this whole time, I'm going to be really upset. I mean, I'll be glad you're still breathing, but I'll be pissed that you let me believe you died. There was a moment of silence, which stretched on forever, but then I heard a low grumbling sound. It could have been mistaken for a thunderstorm brewing in the distance, if not for the fact that I knew Xavier's displeased mouth sound far too well. Oh, you son of a bitch. Now I was pissed. Not so much at Sam, I was more than happy to take it out on her. Vines! I shouted, pointing the staff in the direction of Sam's last attack. A wall of jungle vines sprouted from the ground in the middle of the field of roses, sending dirt and soil flying through the air, and I saw Sam flying through the air as well, propelled by the force of 1,000 tons of foliage suddenly blossoming from beneath her. She came careening back down towards the ground like a satellite returning from orbit, unexpectedly. Her body was wreathed in flames, and she was screaming with what must have been fear. But then I realized it was unbridled rage. "Look what you did to my roses!" she shouted, her trajectory leveling off and her velocity slowing at the last second. She descended like Supergirl, and then hovered softly above the ground in front of me. "You destroyed my garden, you stupid, stupid boy!" I looked around and saw that she was right. Approximately an acre of what had previously been prize-winning roses was now overgrown with jungle and full of buzzing mosquitoes. "Well, you made me believe Xavier was dead. So we're even." She held up the imaginary key which she had taken from his imaginary dead body, and I saw it disappear, fading from existence before my eyes. And then the staff in my hand disappeared as well. It wasn't real either, I realized. "I'm done with you," she said, turning around and marching back towards her palace. "I'm not doing this right now." "What? You can just turn around and go back inside? This isn't over. We're fighting." "You're fighting. I'm going inside," she said, ignoring my pleas of incivility. "Xavier, stop her! She's not allowed to do this, is she?" There's no response from the invisible sorcerer. Seemed this was up to me to figure out. And something about attacking a retreating opponent just it didn't sit right with me. Okay, fine. I'll come back tomorrow. But then we're fighting for real. I'm serious. She waved her hand at me and I sighed, feeling defeated. Turning around, I summoned a portal back to Earth. At least I knew how to do that myself now, and I wasn't dependent on him to get me home. He was still hiding in some invisible state, refusing to speak or come out. "Okay, I'm going back to Earth, Xavier. Stay here if you want. I'm not going to attack somebody when their back is turned and they don't want to fight. We'll come back tomorrow." There was still no response, so I stepped inside the portal alone. When I came out on the other side, I was back home again. With my parents this time, not in Xavier's workshop. Strange, since that wasn't what I had been picturing, but I guess I had been feeling a little homesick. It would be nice to spend some time with my parents for a change. I was standing outside my bedroom door, and the portal closed up behind me, disappearing. "Feels nice to be back home," I said, turning the knob and pushing open my bedroom door. A strange kid with blonde hair and glasses was standing in the middle of my room, picking up one of my favorite toys and playing with it. "Who are you?" he asked, looking up at me curiously. "Who am I? Who are you? This is my bedroom." "No, this is my room." "Mom! Dad!" We both called out at the same time. My parents came up the stairs and looked at both of us. "Oh, you're home. That's nice. I hope you're not bothered. We rented out your room for a foreign exchange student. You haven't been there much, so we figured that you wouldn't mind." "What? Of course I mind. This is my bedroom. I sleep here." "Well, that's not a very nice way to welcome our guest. You can sleep on the floor, sweetie. It'll be good for you." She pushed me into the room and closed the door behind me. I was left alone with a strange kid who was now pulling the arm off of one of my action figures. Can you not do that? It's a collectible. This piece of junk, it's not even mint in box. Be lucky to get back store credit." He succeeded in pulling the arm all the way free from Michelangelo, the Ninja Turtle. It snapped off and plastic shards went flying. Okay, no new rule. No touching. Anything. My Nintendo Switch was on the floor beside a small flat-screen TV, and his eyes drifted over to it, settling on the electronics as an evil grin spread slowly across his face. "Don't you dare. Don't you even think about it!" "Nintendo Switch? he said mockingly, moving quickly towards my most prized possession. You don't even have a PS5? Where's your VR rig? I don't have one. I was edging closer, nervous of what he was going to do. You know, I'm doing you a favor. System's trash. Maybe now your mom will pay to get you a decent one. The kid spoke with an irritating, high-born accent, raising his booted foot over the system and bringing it down hard as I screamed and dove towards it protectively like a Secret Service agent trying to stop a bullet. But it was too late. He brought his boot down hard on the gaming system. Sparks flew and plastic pieces cracked off from the expensive piece of equipment I had saved up for a full year and used all my Christmas and birthday money to buy it. It was my favorite thing in the world, and I thought about my save files with hundreds of hours of Stardew Valley and Breath of the Wild being wiped away in an instant, and howled with unbridled rage. If there was one possession that would set me into a fury if destroyed, it was that. Spittle flew from my mouth as I screamed at the kid, yelling curses and obscenities at him, and then my mom and dad came marching in and pulled me out of my room by my ear. "How dare you talk to our guest like that?" my mom yelled, her face red and angry. "If you can't learn to share your space with him, you can sleep in the attic with the mice," my dad yelled, pulling on a string which hung from the ceiling. Strange, I hadn't noticed that string before that moment. A ladder came down and he pointed up into the darkness and told me to go. The foreign exchange student popped his head out of my room and looked on at the scene, smiling ruefully. I almost started going up the ladder, but the whole thing was just a little too weird. For a second I paused, looking back and forth at both of my parents' faces. There was something off about them. They looked as if they were daydreaming. "Hey, Dad, what's my best friend's name?" I said, suddenly suspicious. He glared at me with hateful, half-asleep eyes, completely unlike the look I usually got from him, which was tolerant and kind. "You don't have any friends," he scoffed. That did it. Suddenly I understood exactly what was happening. My dad knew I didn't have any friends, but he'd never be so rude as to say it to my face. Turning around, I pointed my finger gun at the foreign exchange student and pulled the trigger. The lightning bolt hit him square in the chest, and when it did, it burnt a hole through him and turned him back into his true form. Sam. She lay sputtering and spitting up blood on the floor of my room, and her magic wand rolled from her hand, reappearing and becoming visible as it left her possession. A hole the size of a basketball was burnt into her chest, and there wasn't any chance of snappy action movie quips or anything of the sort as she lay there turning pale and cold. It was slightly disappointing. But then I snatched her wand off the floor and held it up triumphantly, and it was all worthwhile. My parents were blinking and looking around with stunned expressions on their faces when Xavier appeared from his invisible state and began whooping like a barn owl. "Woo! You messed that emo girl up good, you did, my boy. Your first real victory." My parents gasped and my dad fainted suddenly at the sight of a dead body of a teenage girl in my room. I guess they had been hypnotized somehow by Sam. Couldn't blame them for the terrible things that they'd said to me, even if they were true. Before I could tell them anything, my mom started to scream at us both. "This is what you've been doing after school?" Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I just wanted to tell you thank you for watching tonight's video, or listening to tonight's episode of the podcast. And as always, I want to give a very big thank you to everybody who supports me on Patreon. If you scroll down to the description at the very bottom, you'll find a whole bunch of people there. Also, we've included this nice little scrolling thing because the number of people who support me on Patreon has gotten so big that I'm afraid it might actually max out the description. So we've included this here as the little scrolling text on the end screens. So everybody on that scrolling text, everybody I'm about to mention right now and mispronounce all of your names, and everybody who can donate even $1, thank you so much. A very big thank you to Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Stephanie Butler, Reaper61167, Bobby Karman, Tristain, Pelton, Chance Burnett, Diana Kraus, Thicky McQuicky, SamaHigh, CrusaderChocobo, SpookyShel, Atomaurus, Grand Moth the Milky, Big Smoke 369, Captain Scurvy, SaltyIrishPoet, Estebean, Brayden Morris, Nate Kuhl, HorrorFan1212, Our Minute Second Time, Kyle Reznak, David Martin, Scare-ington the Unkempt, Robert Malcolm, Angela, Spanky, Snoochie Boochie, Seclude, Lupita Galvin, That Creepy Chick, Tyler Fletcher, Merxenum, Red Shadow Cat, Xavier the Cheyenne, Demix, Sean Cadieu-baker, 6 Gay Rats in a Trenchcoat, Turtleman, Rob Like Sharp Things, Cryolinian, Xavier Graphius, Lord Life's Best, Goring Tramagacy, Maria Walker, Emily Mitchell, Crazy Kid, Mr. Marcus Blitz, Eka Limchok, Dirt Diver Trio, Matt Bach, Voice of Sand, Coffee Zombie, Hidden Tiger, Shelly J, Jeremy H, Psychomel, Nana, Deleted Account, Melted Lake, Tali Sue, William King, Darth Miver, Michael Ortiz, Titanic Aries, BardoHawk764, Lambda M98, Harley, Sashi Suzaku, Cronut509, Kaylee Ambrose, Suji Campbell, Stricken, Freddy Krueger, Happy Birthday Jason Wilson, Lisa Cottrell, Caspian, Hades Nephew, Tater Chip, Acid System, Prozac and Pancake Appreciation Society, Benjamin Welverick, Cryptic Nightmares, Kiri the Sloth, Fester's Lampshade, Sky Harbor, Nico Kyle, Rafael Rodriguez, The Ginger Bros, Aaron Stormcrow, Daniel Polson, and Corey Kenshin. As always, thank you guys so much, because you guys help me do everything that I do here. You guys help pay authors for stories and commission stories and do everything that I can do to make this channel and make this podcast the best it could possibly be. So thank you all for supporting me here. And as always, everyone, sweet dreams.